Joining me is a former intelligence official, Paul Monk, author of books on China, among other things, and a former head of the China desk in the Defence Intelligence Organisation. Paul Monk, great to see you again. So Albanese wins an election on Saturday, sworn as Prime Minister yesterday, is in Tokyo today, talking with the US, Japan and India about containing China. It's been an amazing whirlwind. How has he handled this so far?
I think he's handled it with considerable tact and aplomb, to be honest. And I think the signature note that he struck was when he said he intended to model himself in terms both of cabinet governance here and in terms of foreign and security policy on Bob Hawke. And I don't know whether Paul Keating will see that as a slap on the wrist, but technically it is, since Keating is rampantly pro-Beijing. So it was very interesting and I think significant to see Albanese come out and say that. And it was a coincidence, of course, that the Quad meeting was immediately after that. Sorry?
Yeah, well, no, I give him a big tick too. I agree with you. And we shall see if it's sustained, but so far so good. I mean, obviously it's a low hurdle at this stage, but we'll see. But Paul, can I talk to you about one thing? All right, you've got Joe Biden there trying to, say this is against autocracy. We're having this meeting. It's quite clear the Quad is about resisting the rise of China, the new trade deal that was signed, preferential trade deal, try to resist Chinese encroachment as well. But here's one thing about the election that really scared me. The ABC is reporting that electorates were almost 1 in 5 people of Chinese ancestry, right? So we're talking about seats like Reid in Sydney, Chisholm in Victoria, very high proportion of Chinese voters there, Australian Chinese. They saw swings of more than 8% towards Labor, away from the coalition to Labor. That's more than double the average. Does this tell politicians that if you stand up to communist China, you risk losing the support of many of our 1.2 million Australians of Chinese ancestry? Because that's a very dangerous message.
It is, and it is, of course, a very sensitive issue. And we need to bear in mind that the Communist Party has gone to great lengths now for many years to try and control opinion, and including social media and public media within the Chinese community in Australia. It treats the Chinese diaspora in all sorts of ways as basically non-existent, as really they're still ours, they're still Chinese, therefore they're ours. And therefore the information, the spin that's going out to many Chinese Australians is strongly influenced by the Communist Party's propaganda. We, of course, in this country want these people to be good and happy citizens of this country, and we need to play our hand deftly to ensure that we win them to that view and away from the Communist Party, rather than create a division in our society where the Chinese community in general is held in suspicion. That would be a most unhappy outcome, but it's one that the Communist Party is exposing us to.
Yes, but I also wonder to what extent we can actually influence that, blood thicken the water, all that kind of stuff. It's a real concern that we're really going to have to work at. Paul, one thing at this Tokyo meeting has been, to me, a big surprise. Now, here we had our then Defence Minister, Peter Dutton, attacked as a warmonger for saying, of course, Australia would help Taiwan if it was attacked by China. But today, or overnight, US President Joe Biden has said exactly the same, even though it's not clear if he just misspoke again or if he really meant it. Have a listen to this.
You didn't want to get involved in the Ukraine conflict militarily for obvious reasons. Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are?
That's the commitment we made.
Paul Monk, American policy has for many, many years been, we don't say whether or not we would defend Taiwan in a war against China. Strategic ambiguity. Did Joe Biden really just change the US policy there in an answer in a press conference, or did he just fumble a response?
I think US policy has been shifting in this regard for some time. And it's been shifting because the policy in Beijing has shifted. The policy in Beijing used to be that we will seek unification by peaceful means and we would only use force if Taiwan openly declared independence. Now what Beijing is saying under Xi Jinping is Time is a luxury that we will not allow Taiwan. They must agree to reunification essentially on our terms sooner rather than later. And if not, we reserve the right to use force. That's a whole different policy. And that's what the Biden administration is reacting to.
Paul, it was exactly 3 months ago on this day, 3 months ago today, that Russia invaded Ukraine, just 2 weeks after Xi Jinping met Vladimir Putin, the Russian president. They signed a little deal together, backing each other. Russia thought that war would be over in just a few days. Instead, Russia has lost a quarter of its army and it's bogged down in Ukraine's eastern front. What do you think Russian President Vladimir Putin has got out of this war so far?
A very bad reputation and heavy costs. So I am strongly of the opinion that Putin completely miscalculated when he went, all out invading Ukraine. I think he believed that NATO would go to water, that the US and NATO wouldn't be able to coordinate. He didn't foresee that Sweden and Finland would say, well, to hell with neutrality after all this time, and it's been a very long time. Russia is the threat and they want into NATO. He didn't anticipate the scale and severity of the sanctions that would be imposed upon him. And above all, whereas for years there were people who were prepared to cut him a bit of slack, saying, well, Russia has legitimate grievances and Russia's a great country and various things like that, and Putin's just a strong leader. Now everybody can see that he's a thug, that there is no excuse whatsoever for what he's done in Ukraine. It's been barbarous. So he's lost a great deal and he's in a mess. And now he's got to decide, does he fall for the sunk costs fallacy and say, I'm going to see this through? Or does he seek a way to back up a bit and save face and reduce costs? That'll be very interesting to see in the next few months.
And meanwhile, the Chinese dictatorship has seen its great big new partner in the new world order to dominate the world is actually worthless, an embarrassment. And now I hope that they've put their own plans to invade Taiwan on the back burner for now, seeing how the West has responded. Paul Monk, thank you so much indeed for your time.